Before diving into the video, did you know that over 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed? Your one like and one subscribe means the absolute world to this channel and helps us keep going. Hit those buttons real quick, and let's get into the video. Chapter 1. The Discovered Screenshot. After returning from a month-long business trip with her male assistant, Sophia finally notices that her phone has been completely silent. Over the past 10 years of their relationship, whenever she got angry, Ethan was always the one to take the initiative to apologize and make up with her. Confused by the silence, she attempts to contact him, only to discover that her calls are blocked and her messages are met with a red exclamation mark. Suddenly, Sophia's phone rings. A friend calls to playfully scold her, asking why she didn't mention that today was a huge day, noting that they found Ethan's location on social media and saw him looking handsome in a suit for a wedding. Sophia is completely confused. After the call, she opens a screenshot sent by her friend showing an island wedding. Initially, Sophia assumes Ethan is simply hiring actors to put on a show to make her jealous. However, she suddenly remembers the events of 1 month prior. At a company event, Sophia had won a lottery for a 2-person island vacation package. While the crowd and Ethan anticipated she would invite him, Sophia calmly announced that she was giving the vouchers to her male assistant, Caleb, because he had been working hard. Ethan's best friend, Liam, whispered in surprise, reminding Ethan that they had all agreed to hold their weddings on an island this year. Ethan forced a bitter smile, saying the promise still stood and that he would still go to the island to hold the wedding. When Sophia handed Caleb the travel vouchers, Caleb accepted them with delight. He then boldly noted that he had no friends to go with and openly asked if Sophia would come along with him instead. Chapter 2. The Broken Promise. The air froze, and co-workers began teasing. Liam slammed his glass down in anger, but Ethan held him back, reassuring Liam that he trusted Sophia not to agree. However, Sophia chuckled and told Caleb that it depended on his work performance, prompting an enthusiastic salute from Caleb and more laughter from the room. Sophia then walked over and sat gracefully next to Ethan, stroking his knuckles. She mentioned that the beach was too crowded and unsafe, suggesting they go to a quiet mountain resort instead when the new year arrived. Ethan slowly withdrew his hand and replied that there was no need because he knew she was busy. Meanwhile, Liam text messaged his own fiancée, Chloe, telling her to bring the island wedding topic up again when she went on stage. Chapter 3. The Gathering on Stage. Ethan, Liam, Chloe, and Sophia had been best friends since college. Liam and Chloe had co-founded the company, and Ethan eventually joined as the deputy director of public relations. Soon after, Chloe was invited to the stage for a speech and announced to the audience that she was getting married the following month on a tropical island. Chloe then turned her gaze directly to Sophia, asking if she wanted to join them. The crowd fell silent. The music was prepped to play, and Ethan felt a spark of hope return to his heart. Yet, under everyone's expectant eyes, Sophia simply shook her head and casually replied that marriage was too important to be handled carelessly, telling them to go ahead without her. Chloe regretfully withdrew her hand and continued her speech, leaving Ethan in silent bitterness. Chapter 4. The Drive Home. Nearby, Caleb sized Ethan up with a smug, provocative smile, to which Ethan merely responded with a nod. When the event ended, Chloe affectionately shook Sophia's wrist, whispering that she was simply too reserved. Driving out of the parking lot, they saw Caleb standing outside, looking youthful and charming in the night breeze. Sophia rolled down her window. Caleb claimed it was late and he couldn't get a rideshare driver. Sophia offered him a ride, and despite Caleb making a show of checking if Ethan minded, he quickly got into the car. Along the way, Caleb chatted endlessly, his hands occasionally brushing Sophia's shoulder, which she didn't mind at all, even showing a smile of helpless indulgence. Ethan felt completely unnecessary. When they arrived at Ethan and Sophia's building, Sophia told Ethan to go upstairs first while she dropped Caleb off. Walking toward the building, Ethan looked back at the traffic light. Through the window, he saw Caleb had moved into the front passenger seat. As Caleb spoke animatedly, he naturally reached out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind Sophia's ear and Sophia lowered her eyes with a gentle smile before driving away. Chapter 5. Packing and Confrontation. The moment Ethan walked inside, he began packing his clothes into a suitcase. Deep in the wardrobe, he found a small metal box containing a handmade leather cord necklace with a tiny silver seashell, his university confession gift to Sophia. Back then, he had promised her that he would one day take her to see the real ocean, and she had seriously accepted. To keep the wedding ceremonial, Ethan had purposely avoided visiting the ocean his entire life, wanting his first time seeing it to be with Sophia in a wedding dress. Beneath the box was an old photograph of the four friends in front of a medieval church during a college trip. That day, Chloe had suggested holding their weddings at the church, but Ethan stated he preferred a bright, comfortable seaside wedding. Sophia had pulled his sleeve and solemnly promised to do so, and the four friends had made a pinky swear that whoever broke the promise was a liar. Sophia returned home and explained that Caleb had an emergency surgery that day, didn't get along with his family, and stayed out late, which is why she brought him to the party. Ethan calmly replied, "Okay." Moments later, Ethan's phone rang on speakerphone. It was a wedding boutique owner stating that the suits Ethan and Liam selected were tailored, asking when he and his fiancée would come try them on. Sophia walked out of the bathroom, and her expression turned cold. She accused Ethan of being selfish, asking if marriage was for only one person to decide. Ethan asked if it wasn't something they agreed on long ago. Sophia shook her head like a dull knife, stating he was being unreasonable, that she didn't have time for a tropical island, and demanded he return the suits the next day. Chapter 6. Goodbye Forever. The next day, Sophia informed Ethan that she was leaving for a distant city for a month-long medical research conference and to teach surgical practice to interns. Ethan understood she was actively avoiding him, deliberately choosing to miss Liam and Chloe's wedding just to avoid marrying him. Ethan drove her to the airport in silence. At security, Caleb was already waiting with his suitcase. Caleb grinned and told Ethan to leave Sophia to him for the next month, promising to ensure she ate and rested well. Ethan smiled faintly and said he would leave her to him. Watching her walk away, Ethan called out her name. Looking at the face he loved for 10 years, he forced a smile and said, "Goodbye forever." The airport noise swallowed his words, and a confused Sophia mouthed, "What did you say?" Ethan simply turned and walked away. Sophia felt a strange flicker of hesitation, but Caleb patted her back, urging her to board, and she walked through security. Ethan went alone to an amusement park and sat on a carousel horse, recalling a past date where Sophia held his hand while riding side by side. Now, the white horse next to him remained empty. His phone vibrated with a message from Liam, asking if he had made up his mind about going to the island tomorrow to finalize wedding arrangements. Ethan looked at the clearing sky and replied that he had made up his mind to fulfill his promise. Chapter 7. The New Bride. Ethan's new fiancée was Lily, a high school and university classmate who had admired him for years but kept her distance out of respect for his relationship with Sophia. After the company lottery incident, she had finally confessed her feelings. They met Liam and Chloe on the tropical island. Chloe affectionately linked arms with Lily, apologizing for ever talking badly about her in the past and officially entrusting Ethan to her care. Lily, looking energetic and youthful in a white shirt and jeans, smiled and tenderly stated that she was the one who should thank them, comparing herself to a lost ship that Ethan finally allowed to dock safely. Liam laughed, noting Lily was much better than Sophia and her cold personality. Privately, Chloe asked Ethan if he was entirely sure or if he wanted to give Sophia one more chance after 10 years. But Liam shot her a dissatisfied look, and Ethan simply smiled without answering. Lily worked as a multilingual tour guide on international cruise routes, but spent all her free time cheerfully helping Ethan prep for the wedding. One night, looking at the silver moonlight on the ocean, Ethan lamented that they wouldn't see it once they went back. Lily peeled a grape for him and beautifully remarked that the sea is just the sky pouring backward onto the land, meaning looking at the sky is the same as gazing at the ocean. The night breeze brushed softly by while the sound of waves soothed the shore the night before the wedding. Liam and Ethan each carried a bottle of beer as they sat side by side on the beach. Liam admitted he was initially worried Ethan was marrying someone out of spite, but seeing how Lily genuinely treasured him, he told Ethan to stay happy forever. They clinked bottles, ready for the wedding the next day. Ethan would wear the groom's suit and walk toward the girl who had finally anchored herself within his sea. Chapter 8. Realization and Blocked Messages. For an entire month during her trip, Sophia failed to reach Ethan, constantly hitting a blocked line or failed delivery notifications. She told herself she wasn't angry, just disappointed, believing Ethan had gone too far but would pull her into his arms to reconcile once she returned and softened her attitude. Caleb knocked on her hotel door, bringing her a sugary drink because she hadn't eaten much, and told her not to stay up too late before closing the door. 2 days later, an old college roommate called Sophia, complaining about why she got married without sending an invite after seeing Ethan's posts. A trembling Sophia demanded screenshots. The images arrived: the beautiful ocean, a golden hotel room sunset, a champagne pyramid, Liam and Ethan wearing groom suits, and a final photo of Ethan standing alone on the beach. Looking at Ethan's upright, firm posture, Sophia felt a heavy, suffocating wave of coldness in her chest. Disliking what she perceived as coercion, she blocked Ethan's number and chat account, and subsequently deleted Liam as well. Yet, her fingers trembled uncontrollably. With 3 days left until the wedding, the silence persisted. Feeling a growing fracture of unease, Sophia packed her bags and booked the earliest flight back, calculating that as long as she lowered her head this one time, she would agree to marry him, believing he could not endure life without her after 10 years. Chapter 9. The Final Exam and the Rediscovered Box. Landing in the middle of the night, Sophia went straight to the hospital to clear her workload and requested 3 days of leave. As she went to book a flight to the tropical island, Caleb intercepted her at the stairs, pleading with her to stay because his final evaluation exam was in 3 days and he felt scared without her. Sophia firmly responded that hospital regulations didn't allow anyone to take the test for him and that he had the ability to pass alone. Caleb lowered his voice, mentioning his difficult family situation and how he'd have to return to his hometown if he failed. Sophia sighed and agreed to wait until his exam finished before leaving. Looking at Caleb's wide grin, Sophia dazed out, remembering that Ethan used to look at her with that exact same joyful, warm gaze. At home, she washed her face, determined to fly out the moment Caleb's exam ended to present Ethan with a submitted marriage application and approved wedding leave. She realized she wasn't against marriage, just resistant to being forced. On the coffee table, she noticed the small metal box containing the seashell necklace, which had been moved from deep in the wardrobe. Holding the silver shell, she felt a distinct sting in her heart. On the day of the test, she waited hours for Caleb, who walked out flashing a relax sign. Sophia immediately turned to leave for her afternoon flight. Caleb insisted on driving her to the airport, and while waiting for boarding, he went to grab coffee. Sitting in the lounge rubbing the necklace, Sophia's phone suddenly rang. It was Chloe. Chapter 10. Too late. Against the noisy backdrop of a live wedding band playing a wedding march, Chloe found a quiet corner and told Sophia, "You don't need to come anymore." Sophia's fingers tightened. Chloe revealed that Ethan had already gotten married that morning on the island to Lily, and that he asked to pass along a message wishing Sophia happiness. Hearing Liam's voice nearby, Chloe hung up. Sophia sat motionless as her phone screen went dark, entirely deaf to the airport announcements around her. Caleb returned with the coffees and crouched down, asking what was wrong. Sophia stared at the seashell necklace reflecting the fluorescent lights, realizing she was 10 years, 1 month, and 1 day too late. Looking at Caleb's concerned face, she remembered how Ethan used to look at her with that exact same complete devotion throughout her entire career. She softly asked Caleb if she had become ugly. Caleb shook his head, saying she was the prettiest. Tears silently slid down her face as she adjusted her necklace and told Caleb, "Let's go back." Chapter 11. Letters and the New Reality. Sophia could not adapt to life without Ethan. She wore the seashell necklace every night, stroking it before sleeping. After work each day, she drove to Ethan's office building and watched his floor's lights turn on and off, imagining him typing at his keyboard. She began writing long letters to him on blank prescription sheets and medical record scraps, mailing them to his company. The first letter was over 10,000 words, detailing their college meeting and his trembling hands during his confession. The second offered to return the necklace in person, and the third simply read, "Ethan, I miss you." No reply ever came. Meanwhile, Caleb transferred apartments and visited her a few times, but Sophia kept their chats strictly professional and escorted him to the door. The last time, Caleb stood at the frame and asked if she was avoiding him, to which Sophia gave a gentle but distant response telling him to focus on his work. On a late autumn evening, while parked outside Ethan's company, Sophia saw Ethan and Lily walking out together. She pushed open her car door and stared across the street. Ethan looked calmer, more relaxed, and more fulfilled than ever before. As he turned to carefully protect Lily, Sophia noticed the distinct curve of Lily's 3-month pregnant belly. Ethan tucked a loose strand of hair from Lily's face, then caught sight of Sophia across the street. His eyes showed no surprise or panic. He spoke softly to Lily, who nodded and entered the car first. Ethan walked over, stopping 3 steps away, and said, "Sophia, long time no see." With a hoarse voice, Sophia congratulated him on becoming a father. Ethan smiled with relief, thanked her, and sincerely stated, "Sophia, it's over between us now. I'm very happy now. You should start your own new life, too." Sophia stood frozen, watching his car disappear into the twilight traffic, finally realizing some distances were impossible to cross. Chapter 12. Desolate Wasteland. Through bits and pieces mentioned by Chloe during occasional visits, Sophia pieced together Ethan's new life. Ethan and Lily settled permanently on the tropical island. Lily adjusted her sailing routes to be with family, while Ethan opened a uniquely styled themed cafe by the seaside, filled with bookshelves and trinkets Lily gathered from around the world. Chloe and Liam occasionally visited them on the island. Chloe brought back a photograph showing Ethan in a linen shirt, wrapping one arm around Lily and holding a swaddled baby in the other, wearing a radiant smile. On the baby's 1-month celebration, Chloe posted pictures online of the 3 of them sitting together on a seaside reef in the warm sunlight, Ethan softly kissing Lily's hair. Sophia stared at the photograph for a very long time, remembering how she once believed they had endless years to waste and that Ethan would always remain by her side like a shadow. Trapped by the question of how they became complete strangers, Sophia eventually relocated to a distant place where no one knew her. Yet, every late night, she continued to dream of the blue ocean and a man in a groom suit smiling at her, saying, "Sophia, I waited for you for a very long time." She would wake abruptly in the pitch-black darkness with a dull ache in her chest, knowing Ethan had found a ship willing to sail in his sea, leaving her completely alone upon a desolate, helpless wasteland. Chapter 13. Unsent Replies and Quiet Echoes. Back on the tropical island, the rhythm of Ethan's life moved with the tides. The seaside cafe had become a local sanctuary, its walls lined with the international trinkets Lily brought home and the heavy scent of freshly roasted coffee beans. For Ethan, the past was a closed book, yet pieces of it occasionally drifted across the sea. At his office in the city, a cardboard box had slowly filled with the letters Sophia had sent over the months. When the company finally forwarded them to the island, Ethan sat by the docks alone one evening to read them. He unfolded the crisp medical record papers and blank prescription sheets, tracing the familiar handwriting. He read the 10,000-word recollection of their university days, the desperate offer to return the seashell necklace, and the final, simple admission of her longing. There was no anger in his eyes as he read, only a profound, quiet stillness. When Lily walked down to the docks, wrapping a warm shawl around his shoulders and resting her chin on his arm, he looked up at her and smiled. He didn't write back. He knew that an answer, even a kind one, would only prolong the false hopes Sophia was clinging to. Instead, he folded the papers neatly, placed them back in the box, and let the ocean breeze carry away the final remnants of a decade-long ghost. Chapter 14. The Final Severing. A year after her departure from the city, Sophia found herself completely isolated in a quiet coastal town up north. Despite the proximity to the water, she never went down to the shore. The sound of the waves only amplified the dull ache that had settled permanently in her chest. Caleb had tried to reach out one final time before his official transfer to an overseas medical program, stopping by her new clinic to offer a proper goodbye. He stood awkwardly in her office, noting the silver seashell necklace still hanging tightly around her neck. He asked if she had finally found peace. Sophia only offered a polite, hollow smile, thanking him for his past help and wishing him success. When he left, she realized she had successfully pushed away everyone who had ever tried to fill the void. That night, Sophia opened a social media account she hadn't touched in months. A shared post from Chloe popped up on her feed, a celebration photo of Ethan, Lily, and their toddler walking along the island beach. Ethan looked vibrant, his face weathered slightly by the sea sun, but glowing with an undeniable, grounded joy. Lily was laughing, holding their child's hand as they chased the receding foam. Looking at the image, the illusion Sophia had carried for a year finally shattered. Ethan was never coming back, and he was completely whole without her. With trembling fingers, she finally unclasped the silver seashell necklace, placed it inside the small metal box, and closed the lid for the last time. Chapter 15. Two Distinct Paths. Years passed, and the contrast between their two worlds grew absolute. On the island, Ethan's life became a vibrant tapestry of family and community. His cafe expanded, becoming a beloved landmark where travelers stopped to hear the ocean waves and browse the global artifacts filling the shelves. He and Lily watched their children grow up with the sea as their backyard, their marriage anchored in mutual respect, shared decisions, and a quiet, unwavering devotion that required no grand gestures or dramatic tests. Ethan had found the bright, comfortable seaside life he had always dreamed of, fully realized in the warmth of a partner who truly treasured him. Far away in the quiet northern town, Sophia lived a life dictated by routine and absolute solitude. She became a dedicated, highly respected surgeon, pouring every ounce of her remaining energy into her patients and her work. The hospital corridors became her sanctuary, a place where logic and medical discipline left no room for emotional turbulence. She grew older in the quiet house away from the shore, never marrying and never allowing anyone else close enough to hurt her again. On the rare nights when the sea fog rolled in heavy and thick against her windows, she would occasionally look out into the darkness, completely accepting the reality that she had traded a lifetime of shared devotion for the safety of her own distant, untouchable isolation. Chapter 16. The Changing Tides. As the years deepened, the tropical island became an inseparable part of Ethan's identity. The initial sea fog of his youth had entirely cleared, replaced by the permanent, golden warmth of the coastal sun. His children grew tall and strong, their laughter echoing through the open-air pavilion of the cafe. Lily eventually retired from her international cruise routes, choosing instead to manage the cafe's daily operations alongside Ethan. They became an inseparable team, their movements synchronized by decades of shared history and a quiet, profound understanding that required no words. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the ocean in shades of brilliant amber, Ethan would wrap his arms around Lily on the porch, feeling a deep, unshakable gratitude for the life they had built together from scratch. Meanwhile, the northern town where Sophia resided began to change as well. The quiet, sleepy streets gradually gave way to modernization, and the hospital where she worked expanded into a massive regional medical center. Sophia was promoted to chief of surgery, a position that demanded absolute focus and swallowed whatever remaining free time she had left. She wore her administrative authority like a suit of armor, completely detached from the personal lives of her colleagues. Her hair began to silver at the temples, a physical testament to the relentless passage of time she spent entirely alone, isolated in a world of sterile steel, bright operating lights, and endless medical charts. Chapter 17. An Unexpected Crossing. The absolute separation between their lives was unexpectedly tested during a major international medical conference held in a bustling metropolitan city. Sophia, attending as a keynote speaker representing her hospital, walked through the crowded convention center with her usual poised, distant demeanor. As she navigated the bustling exhibition hall filled with hundreds of global medical professionals, her gaze casually drifted toward a line of promotional booths showcasing regional healthcare developments from across the country. Her heart stopped. Standing at a booth representing a small, specialized medical clinic based in the southern tropical islands was Liam. He was older, his face lined with mature confidence, engaged in an earnest conversation with an investor. Sophia froze 3 steps away, the breath catching in her throat as a flood of memories rushed back. For a split second, she debated turning away, but Liam looked up and his eyes locked onto hers. The initial shock in his expression quickly faded into a polite, professional neutrality. He nodded slightly, a formal, quiet acknowledgement from a distance, before turning his attention back to his meeting. There was no anger, no resentment, and no desire to reconnect. The brief interaction made it crystal clear to Sophia that the past was completely dead to everyone but her. Chapter 18. The Box in the Ocean. Returning to the northern town after the conference, Sophia felt a profound shift within herself. Seeing Liam had shattered the final, subconscious illusion she didn't even realize she was keeping alive. The idea that her past errors still held weight in the world she left behind. The realization didn't bring sadness, but rather a cold, clear clarity. That weekend, for the first time in over a decade, Sophia walked down to the edge of the northern shore. The wind was fierce and bitter, driving gray waves violently against the jagged black rocks. In her pocket, she carried the small metal box containing the silver seashell necklace, the artifact she had guarded like a relic for so many years. She stood on the precipice of the cliff, looking out at the vast, uncaring expanse of water. Without hesitation, she drew the box from her pocket and hurled it far into the crashing surf. She watched it disappear instantly beneath the white foam. There was no dramatic release, no sudden rush of peace. There was only the cold wind and the empty space in her pocket. She turned her back on the ocean and walked back to her quiet house, finally acknowledging that some choices carve canyons so deep that no amount of time can ever bridge them. Chapter 19. Anchored Futures. Years gave way to decades, and the story of their youth became nothing more than a faint whisper buried under the weight of 2 entirely fulfilled, yet drastically different destinies. On the tropical island, Ethan celebrated the marriage of his eldest daughter on the very same beach where he and Lily had stood decades before. The cafe was adorned with hundreds of fairy lights, the air filled with the rich aroma of coffee, tropical flowers, and the endless, comforting roar of the sea. Ethan looked at Lily, whose eyes were filled with tears of joy, and kissed her hand. He had set out to find a sea that truly belonged to him, and in doing so, he had built a sanctuary that would outlast them both. Far to the north, Sophia eventually retired from active surgery, leaving behind a legacy of flawless medical precision and a generation of thoroughly trained residents. On her final day, she walked out of the hospital entrance into the quiet autumn evening, her steps slow but deliberate. She returned to her solitary home, sat by the window as the twilight faded into darkness, and poured herself a quiet cup of tea. She had chosen safety and isolation over the vulnerability of love, and as the quiet years settled over her, she lived out the remainder of her days in absolute peace, untouched, unbothered, and entirely alone on her own terms. Chapter 20. The Light Upon the Water. The final transition of time arrived not with a storm, but with the gentle, golden haze of a late summer afternoon that seemed to stretch infinitely across the tropical island. Decades had passed, and the legacy of the seaside cafe had grown into something legendary, a vibrant hub of life, laughter, and generations of stories woven into the very wood of its open-air pavilion. Ethan and Lily were now in the twilight of their long lives. Their hair completely silver, their faces beautifully lined with the marks of a lifetime spent in absolute harmony. They had handed the daily operations of the cafe over to their children, but every afternoon, without fail, they would walk down to the custom wooden bench Ethan had built on the edge of the reef, right where the tide came in to greet the shore. On this particular evening, the air was exceptionally clear, and the ocean was a vast sheet of shimmering sapphire and gold. Their children and grandchildren were gathered on the cafe patio, just 50 yards away, the bright sound of children's laughter and acoustic music drifting over the sound of the waves. Ethan sat on the bench, his posture still carrying the relaxed confidence of a man who had long ago anchored his soul in the right harbor. He reached out and took Lily's hand, his thumb gently tracing the back of her knuckles, just as he had done every day for 40 years. Lily turned to him, her eyes reflecting the brilliant sunset, and rested her head comfortably against his shoulder. "Look at the sky tonight, Ethan," Lily whispered, her voice soft but filled with the same vibrant warmth that had once rescued him from his darkest hour. "It's beautiful." Ethan looked up at the vast expanse, remembering the words she had spoken to him on this very beach when they were young, that the sea was just the sky pouring backward onto the land. He smiled, a deep, overwhelming sense of fulfillment washing over him. He had spent his youth waiting for a promise that was never meant to be kept, but the universe had redirected his ship to a shore that offered a love far greater, truer, and more resilient than anything he had ever imagined. He turned slightly and pressed a gentle kiss to Lily's silver hair, tightening his grip on her hand. "It's perfect," Ethan replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Every single bit of it." As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting a magnificent net of stars across the sky, the lights of the cafe flickered on, illuminating the path behind them. They rose from the bench together, their steps slow but perfectly synchronized, walking hand in hand toward the warmth of the family they had built. Ethan had set out so many years ago to find his sea, and in the bright, comfortable sanctuary of the life he shared with Lily, he had finally found his eternal home.